Now let's go to the political fallout of all of this. Here with us now is David Carlucci, Democratic strategist and former New York State Senator, and Alex Taurasio, GOP strategist and pollster at Signal. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining. Alex, I will start with you. Republican Senators Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, they signaled they may no longer support the U.S. military action in Iran if it goes past 60 days. They aren't the first to support something like this. What does it say about where the party stands when it comes to this war, with some Republicans already reaching their breaking point, or at least their red line?
I'd say that that's fairly consistent with what voters are thinking. The support for the war among Republicans, among all American voters, is that if this is quick, if it's over fast, then people are willing to tolerate it. If it goes on longer, we're seeing that the people who expect that the war will last longer than 3 months, 6 months, a year, those are the ones who are most likely to vote for a generic congressional Democrat. Those are the ones who have the lowest approval of Donald Trump. And the people who have expectations that this war will be shorter, those tend to be on the right. And so that's the set of expectations that people have on each side. And so if it does end up being a shorter conflict, then I think it could even be to the benefit of Republicans. Right now, it is a very slight drag. But if it does go longer, then it would be worse news.
Democrats have been trying to rein in President Trump's use of military force and money, quite frankly. Efforts in both chambers of Congress have so far failed. The 60-day deadline under the War Powers Act is rapidly approaching, David. It's going to be at the end of the month. How should Democrats refocus their efforts?
Well, I continue to try to put transparency on this issue. The fact is that the problem here is Donald Trump, his strategy was to never get a coalition of allies, not to get the buy-in from the American public, not even to get the buy-in from Congress. And that's why when things get a little messy, as they have, the problems just exacerbate. And this is what we see here. We see mission creep. We're not even sure, this short in, what mission accomplished means. And Donald Trump is changing his tune hour by hour, minute by minute, in terms of what does it mean to have victory in Iran. Is it just to open the Strait of Hormuz? Is it to get a deal on nuclear weapons? Is it regime change? All of these things change by the day, and that makes it harder for the American people to rally behind our president.
The midterms are less than 200 days away. President Trump was at Turning Point yesterday, a Turning Point USA event yesterday, and he talked about the November elections. Here's a little bit of what he said.
So if you want a poor and weak America, a country that's riddled with crime and death, disease, and nothing but problems, you should immediately vote Democrat. If you want a rich and strong and a country that you're going to be proud of, America, you must go out in the midterms and vote Republican. We need that.
All right, David, what's your assessment on the comments he made on both parties?
Yeah, look, I think President Trump does well when he's campaigning to run for something. He's the chief blamer, right? He's really good at that. But the reality is he's the guy that's in charge right now. He's acting like he's not. So he's in full campaign mode. He's never left campaign mode, and people desperately need him to govern. We still have a partial government shutdown. We have a war in Iran. We have an energy crisis. We have an affordability crisis. And what is the president doing? He's talking about blaming people that aren't in charge. That's the problem. And that's why we see independence. The coalition that Donald Trump actually put together to get elected has evaporated. That's why special election after special election, doesn't matter if it's a progressive Democrat, a conservative Democrat, they are beating Republicans. They're overperforming time and time again because people are sending a message. They want the president to get to work and stop blaming other people. Take responsibility and do your job.
Alex, what's your response?
The president is not in charge of Fairfax County, where there have been 5 murders this year, and one of them was a former Democratic lieutenant governor, and the rest were illegal immigrants, killing regular people, Americans just going around doing their day. And so there are policies all across this country in Democratic-run counties and states that are leading to people getting killed. More carjackings, more death, more murder. And so, no, the president is not in charge of those localities. Democratic officials largely are. I think that people see that. And so in the midterms, they're not just going to be selling potentially whatever they don't like from the Republicans. They have to be buying what the Democrats are selling. And so far, to me, it doesn't look like anything has really changed. We can see more immigration. more murder from people who are going to be let out of prison, and then more problems. So if you want to vote, if you want that, then yeah, vote Democrat.
David, a shadow primary for the presidential race is already underway, and I'm talking about 2028. Former Vice President Kamala Harris, Democratic Senator Cory Booker, they were both speakers at an event in Michigan. What's the message from Democrats right now looking ahead to 2028? In the shorter term, how does a shadow primary affect Democrats?
Well, I think it builds the bench, right? It builds the infrastructure within the Democratic Party, what's going to be needed to win a presidential election. But most importantly, this helps bolster the enthusiasm towards the midterms. And that's where all the focus really needs to be. And that's where after these midterms, we'll see where the dust settles and who really helped out and who benefited from what happened here to propel them in 2028. But I think the bottom line here is we see just dramatic enthusiasm on the Democratic side. We see candidates climbing all over themselves to try to get involved in the presidential race in 2028 because they see a huge opportunity. And, you know, it is difficult for Democrats when the president just gives them, you know, one problem after the other to try to solve. And that's what is important, that Democrats do have to remain focused on affordability, on care, on building our infrastructure, and not always just responding to the daily crises that come out of the White House. So that is the obstacle for the Democrats to stay focused while still addressing the problems that are constantly coming out of the White House, but talk about, hey, where are we going to take this once we finally do have a Democratic administration again in 2029?
Alex, I'll give you the final word.
I think it's funny that at no point did any of the pictures in that or in David's remarks mentioned the biggest news in the Democratic presidential primary this week, which was Ruben Gallego, who seems to have taken himself out of the presidential runnings. I don't think that he was a top-tier candidate. Now it's very unlikely that he's a candidate at all. There is a grueling process to select who is going to be the nominee of their party. And so what I see so far is that the only people on the Democratic side that are likely to make it through that process are the same people, the same names that have been known for a long time. That means fewer Democratic choices for voters to select from in the upcoming Democratic primary process. And I think
we're going to have a robust field
with that.
I think we're going to have a robust field. I think we could really say you're talking about the GOP primary, which is really going to have a hard time getting out of the way of Donald Trump. And that's where I think there's a lot of confusion. We have a wide open tent, as we've talked about. And I think as we get through these midterms, we're going to see that come together. But I think the bigger challenge is going to be what happens on the Republican side. Is Donald Trump going to be able to get out of his own way? Or is he going to continue to drag down the party?
Less than 200 days away. Can you believe that? We're almost at midterms, gentlemen. David Carlucci, Alex Horacio, we appreciate your time this morning. We hope you come back. Thank you.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
And this week, a federal